Good evening, folks. As people jump in, we're coming in from the 9th and 10th grade one. We're going to give people a few minutes as they arrive into this webinar. So just sit tight, everybody, if you could. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. My name is Mike Berry. As you can tell on the screen, I just realized that it's on the screen again. So my name is Mike Berry, and clearly it's been a little bit of a long day as we kind of prepare for this session and other sessions to inform the students and families of the upcoming year. So many of you are on this, probably sat in on last week's parent information night and student information night. This evening is for us to kind of get into a little bit more of the details and the specifics of what the experience for in-person learners and remote learners could be like and will be like for the 11th and 12th graders at Souhegan High School in the fall. The important piece is this. We're going to go through a brief presentation. The other administrators are going to kind of talk through certain aspects of what the school day and questions that we are anticipating that people want answers to. But what we'd like for you to do is be able to have the opportunity to ask questions. So if we could ask you to use the question and answer function and type in your question throughout the presentation. And Kelly Braley will go ahead and answer your questions as they come up, but we're also going to answer many of the questions at the conclusion of the presentations, and that will kind of spark other questions. And we really want people to ask questions if they think they can, better the entire group or get a global perspective of things. But please know that any question that you have that's an individual question about, your individual student experience, or just really relevant to your situation, please know that you can reach out to anyone on this screen or any counselor, and we're going to be really diligent and efficient about answering questions, because we absolutely know that this is kind of a very awkward time, and we're changing the educational experience, and we're doing it differently, and we're asking for people to be really patient and understanding as we make that shift into what school is going to look like in the fall in SAU 39 in Souhegan High School. So this doesn't have to be the last time questions are asked. And so we hope that you understand that this is a partnership, and there's going to be two-way kind of lines of communication, and there's going to be frequent communication. And because the school year is divided up into segments, and we're going to be changing the landscape, because right now, I'll tell you, about 25% of the teachers and roughly 70% of the students are, 25% of the teachers and 30% of the students right now are remote, and 70% of the students and 75% of the teachers are in person, and that could shift in segment 2. And so I want you to know that it's a real fluid situation right now, but as we move through this, we want people to know that the safety of the students and the staff is our primary concern. And we will be making decisions on how we provide the best educational experience so we can get a year of growth and make it a meaningful and relevant education is going to be our priority. And these foundations can be found on the website, and we talked a little bit about these, and we'll get into the specifics. You'll see these reflected in the presentation this evening and how we answer the questions. For us, we really think that this plan, although confusing, and it is confusing, and although it can be overwhelming to learn like how we're going to go about school, allows us to be really flexible and allows the learning and to be sustainable. And it allows us to navigate the school year and react to any situation that might come our way. And even it was going to take a little time to get comfortable with it, but the way the structure is set up, we think it's really beneficial for us to educate the students at Souhegan in this manner. So with that said, I will turn it over to, I believe, Kelly Driscoll.
Hey, good evening. I'm Kelly Driscoll. I am not Karen Chininis, which is what it says in my name. So sorry for the confusion. But Kelly Driscoll, Dean of Students. I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of what segment 1 is going to look like, which is going to go by really quickly. And unfortunately, segment 1 is going to feel a little unlike what we may expect, what we will expect moving forward. So it doesn't really give us a sense of what the schedule will look like. But as is tradition at Souhegan, on this September 2nd, we will have our 9th grade orientation and our 12th grade welcome back. And we'll have a special orientation back into the building. As you know, we left in March rather quickly, and most students haven't had a chance to be back in the building. And there have been some changes to the physical space. And so we want to be able to welcome 12th graders, have our traditional celebration of the beginning of their senior year, but also kind of give them the lay of the land. So there's a sense of what to expect in moving around the building. So that will take place on the 2nd. On Thursday, the 3rd, all students will return. We will have the staggered start. So we will have our freshmen coming in a little bit later, but our 11th and 12th graders coming in at 7:25. It will be a special white day schedule. And what that means is that we're going to begin and end in advisory. We'll have time for orienting to the building again for the 11th graders who were not part of the orientation on the 2nd. So again, a chance to kind of see the building, what our expectations are around moving around the hallways, things like bathroom use. And then all students will have an opportunity to go to each of their classes. So it will be a short class, a special white day, beginning and ending in advisory. No school on the 4th in observance of Labor Day, and Monday the 7th as well. Tuesday the 8th is our all remote learning day, when all students will be remote. It will be a special white day schedule as well, with an opportunity to see each one of your teachers remotely and kind of get a sense of what that's going to look like on remote days. That will include logging into Google Classroom and making sure that you have access to everything you'll need. So that's a really important day and is a full day of school. You will receive more information about what that day looks like in the schedule for that day. Wednesday the 9th, we'll kind of dig into what will be more of our regular schedule, the gold day schedule. Thursday will be the black day schedule. And then Friday, which rounds out our segment 1, will be another special white day beginning, I'm not sure we're going to begin an advisory, but we will have a special advisory period in which we kind of debrief how the segment went. So it's going to go super quick, and it's not going to be as regular or routine as you can expect with the other segments, but it will go by quick. So that's what you can expect in the first 2 weeks of school.
Hi everyone, Natalie Berger, Dean of Faculty, and I'm just going to really quickly review the schedule again that Kelly just mentioned. This is really not going to come into play until that Wednesday and Thursday of week 2, and then from thereafter in segment 2 and beyond, this will be more of the regular schedule that you'll see. So for 11th and 12th graders, you'll see that you might have classes scattered throughout this day, but we are using that gold and black schedule. And we'll talk a little bit more later about that idea that you need to be on campus when you need to be on campus and not when you don't need to be on campus now that you're older in Division II, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Good evening, everyone. So last Thursday, we were able to provide access to the students for their schedule. So I really appreciate your patience as we've been creating a schedule to accommodate the reopening plan. So if you were not able to access it yet, you can follow these steps. And you'll be able to see your schedule. Also, you can revisit your schedule anytime if you anticipate any changes, if you've been working with one of the counselors these last few days to alter your schedule in any way. So we've made a few accommodations to what our normal practice has been in the past, and this was really to create some flexibility for our students to make sure that they were able to access the classes that they needed. One of the things that you may have noticed on the schedule that we just reviewed was that 11th and 12th graders, their schedule looks a little different in that there are 8 periods of the day in addition to lunch and advisory. So that was, I think, a little confusing for some kids when they first reviewed their schedule, as opposed to what our schedule has been in the past, where we've had 7 academic days. So 7 academic periods, sorry. So one of the ways that we're accommodating students, depending on what their plans are and their post-secondary plans, is we are not requiring a minimum amount of credits or classes this year. So students who are in good standing with their credits and in line with their post-secondary plans will really have some flexibility in the number of classes that they choose to pursue this year. They can also have a combination of Souhegan classes as well as online, such as VLEX, which is our virtual learning high school in New Hampshire, college courses, or extended learning opportunities. So in a sense, this is something that students have always kind of asked for, to have a little bit more flexibility with that, and we're certainly providing that this year. There have been some questions about community service hours. We've eliminated the minimum amount of hours required, but we will still document community service hours that students pursue on their transcript. The 11th and 12th graders are allowed to leave campus if they don't have a class scheduled or if their class is remote. And also another question that's come up a lot was about senior projects. So senior project this year will be optional for seniors. There'll be a little bit more information that will be rolled out at the beginning of the year, but seniors will have until I believe September 23rd to make a decision whether they'd like to engage in senior project this year. And sorry about that. And there are some classes, we'll talk a little bit more about this in a couple minutes, that are scheduled that will be primarily remote classes. So you may have a combination of in-person and remote classes as well.
So our remote learning design is really supposed to build off of the success that we had in the spring. We really did have an experience in the spring that, while it was difficult for people to be off campus, the large majority of our students were engaged in some really high quality learning, and we've taken that and built on that to make it even better for this year. So our teachers are receiving a lot of professional development next week, sorry, to make sure that they are ready to offer high quality remote learning. And Karen just did mention that idea that some classes, depending on the teacher and whether that teacher teaches a singleton, they may have to be primarily remote classes. And the reason is that we need our classes to be accessible by all learners. So if you are taking a class that is an AP class that's taught by just one teacher in the building, we don't have the ability for that to be offered simultaneously, remote and in person. And what we're doing at this point is going through the numbers that we've received from teachers and students and really trying to work with those numbers and finding out from the teachers what their plans are. Are they going to be at home remotely teaching that particular singleton class, and so even the students in the building would have to access that class remotely, or there might be opportunities for those singleton teachers who want their students who are on campus to be in the classroom with them in more of a hybrid model. So that's something we're actively working on right now. But what's important to know is that we are working really hard to make sure that classes are engaging and rigorous and appropriately challenging for all students, whether they're in the building or whether they're at home. And we're also working to make sure that we have the appropriate supports. For example, our Division II Saver support model, where we had drop-in academic help throughout the day last year and learning commons, we're going to try to arrange that to make sure we have those opportunities both on campus and remotely for this year. And one last thing that's there is that the learning targets and the way that students are assessed will be the same whether you're an at-home learner or an on-campus learner using the same assessment, grading, and reporting practices.
I'm going to talk quickly about our anchoring adult, and that one of the things we heard a lot during our spring remote learning time, and also over the summer as we're kind of navigating this new experience is, I have a question, I don't know who to ask, so I'm just going to ask you, maybe you can help me with it. So we want an opportunity to provide a deeper connection with families, with someone who has an opportunity to get to know your student really well, and then provide some assistance in facilitating when there is a need for support or resources and you don't know where to go. So again, this is for issues regarding or regarding issues in which you may not know where to go or how to access support. By all means, if you have already established a connection or you know where to get your answer, please continue to reach out to those people. But the anchoring adult is designed to be a primary contact when you don't really know where to go or how to gain information. In most cases, this is going to be the advisor. There might be some cases in which it would not be the advisor. In that, it would be if there is a previously established relationship that we might want to continue. So that could be a counselor, a guidance counselor, a learning specialist, or some other adult in the building that there's already an established relationship. So you'll be receiving communication from both the advisor and the anchoring adult, either before school starts or within the first segment, which will establish communication and connection, and then with the anchoring adult, set up an opportunity for a conversation to kind of establish what your needs are, what your concerns are, and how you can access that person. So I saw already that there's some questions about that orientation time for 11th and 12th graders and what that might look like for remote learners. Whoa. So on the second, for seniors as they're coming in, there are designed activities that both remote and in-person learners will engage in. There will be potentially some live streaming or some Zoom opportunities to participate. So absolutely, seniors will be a part of that, whether or not you're on campus or you're a remote learner. The 11th grade, that white day, that special white day schedule when we're meeting on the 3rd in advisory, that's going to be a chance to get to know the building, get to know what the expectations, ask questions, and really dig into any areas of concern that you might have, and also to kick off the school year and celebrate being back in the building. For those remote learners, there will be opportunities for you to participate in advisory activities as well, and engage both in a remote setting and then maybe a live streaming as well. I'll toss it over to Kelly Braley.
Thanks. So a few weeks back, the NHIA did announce their recognition of all sports effective September 8th. This means that would be the first day of tryouts. The SAU is still working to decide what's going to be great for us. The NHIA just provides the framework that member schools agree to abide by, but it's up to districts to decide what sports they're going to offer and when. We have developed a return to play plan using guidance from the CDC, the New Hampshire Governor's Office Youth and Amateur Sports, the NHADA, and others. We are also in the process of having our fall sports participate in some optional summer workouts that are happening now using appropriate socially distanced guidelines and things, and they're going quite well. So we're just waiting on hearing from the SAU and what that plan is going to be for us to move forward in the fall. Clubs, activities, robotics, drama, mock trial, etc., have all been included in those plans as well. So hopefully we can get everybody back to doing what they love safely and soon.
So as you see, as we get into segment 2, it was touched upon a little bit earlier that our weekly schedule will take this shape as we, not in segment 1, but in segment 2. And I want to talk a little bit about the personalized learning day for 11th and 12th graders. That could really evolve into a day that kids can really own their learning, and staff and students can come together to decide how best to service the needs of particular classes, groups of kids, individual students. Teachers will have office hours. That is a work day, and the teachers will be available, and you're going to see those kind of situations kind of evolve as people become more comfortable in September, October, November on how we use that day. You know, that's as long as we stay in a yellow type of, you know, or orange type of code, really. And that's something that we want the 11th and 12th graders to take advantage of. And you're going to have opportunities to come up here and have access to, if you need counselors, or if you need other types of supports, if you're preparing for AP exams, or you want to have space to prepare for SAT exams. That's really where we kind of allow that day and some flexibility to individualize what the learning could take what the learning could look like for certain kids. And that is important, that families and students know that they can make that day what they need to, but the staff will also be putting in some requirements in there as well around the classes, and you'll see some co-curricular stuff as well. So please keep that in mind. Here are some frequently asked questions from previous presentations. They were on there. This document was made public, and we've kind of created a second version of it for this. The AP and dual enrollment classes, please know that those are still happening. A couple dates. We've got a school board meeting tomorrow night. We got tours next week. More information to come out about that for 9th graders and new students. And then we have the first day for seniors and freshmen on the 2nd, and the first day for everyone else on the 3rd. So with that said, here's some contact information for anyone who has some scheduling issues or questions. And I think we should kind of just jump into the questions right now, Kelly Braley, if we can.
You got it. Kelly, would you mind speaking a little bit about parking? When filling out registration forms, there was no way to pay for parking.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard earlier tonight that there were some issues with maybe the forms in the registration tab. So I'll check into that. There should be a way to pay. The parking fee has been reduced from $100 to $50 this year. And there should be an online option to pay. We will be distributing the parking permit within the first segment, so we're not really that worried. So if you haven't had a chance to get your permit or your little sticker, not to worry. Feel free to get that during the first segment. But to answer your question about paying, there should be an option to pay online. So I'll check into that and make sure that you can both fill out the registration form, the off-campus form, and make payment. So we'll send out more information on that. You're not the first person to ask.
I'd like to add to this if we could. We really, we've transitioned to Power School. So a lot of our communication is going through that student information system, including some of the forms. And, it's a tough thing to transition to Power School in any year. It's really tough to transition while you're trying to do other activities such as, plan a reopening. That is not typical. So we know that, we recognize that it's not the smoothest thing that's happening, and we just, are grateful for your patience and understanding. If you have any questions on how to navigate that system, please reach out. And more information while I'm talking about it will come out about, for students and families on when we start to talk about, using eCollect and Power School in Google Classroom, Empowered. There's going to be some information presented to students and families on how to navigate some of the technology and mediums that we use. So just want to put that out there.
I just want to add something. It wasn't part of the question, but I think it's important for this group, for drivers and for students who will be leaving campus. We're going to have a little bit of a different check-in, check-out system. We will no longer be asking you to physically sign out of the building. We're trying to avoid kind of that log jam at the Welcome Center of students lining up and trying to sign out. So we will be asking you to kind of check in and check out on your device, likely using eCollect through Power School that will log you log you on campus or off campus. So that stay tuned for that information, but we will be looking to account for people a little bit differently. And that's going to be an important part of juniors and seniors coming and going from campus.
Great. Natalie, could you speak to the lunch advisory schedule? What time is it for who and such?
Yeah, we are still working out exact times for lunch advisory, partly because of our what we need to look at in terms of our food services. So we anticipate, I think, that the times, the split, I think, being similar as last year, and I'll wait for my panelists to nod to see if I'm correct with my answer, but so that 11th graders had advisory first and then lunch last year. And then we would anticipate that being the same this year, and the exact split of the time we will, we're getting to those details, and we'll make sure that that comes out with the, information about the schedule as soon as it's ready.
Karen,
Yeah.
there are a couple of questions in here about the CTE programs and students going to Nashua South for periods 1 and 2. So could you talk about those programs?
Sure, I was just answering that question, but yeah, so I've been meeting with the CTE programs each week this past month, and as they have designed what their plans are, they have not yet been confirmed by their school districts. So as soon as we get that information, the plan is for the counselors to contact the students who are enrolled in the CTE programs to discuss what that might look like for them, and if they still choose to pursue that, and if they do, then we'll accommodate their schedules. But we're all eager to hear about those plans, and they're in the same position that other schools are in finalizing things. So
great. Natalie, about substitutes and how are substitutes going to be utilized this year?
I'm going to ask Mike to answer that one if he can.
So substitutes, we will be having substitutes coming in the building. They'll be part of our back to school and reopening training about protocols and procedures and how we're going to, handle some of the logistics around the building. Substitutes will be used for in-person learning as needed, and we'll make sure they are ready to, be an active member, informed member of Souhegan staff as we get ready for the year. If you're interested in subbing, you can fill out an application at Central. Just saying.
Great. Natalie, would you like to explain what happens if a student is going in person and their teacher is remote?
Yeah, thanks for that question and clarification. And I'm going to try to give the simplest explanation I can, even though the answer is a little bit complex. So we have some courses scheduled where there are in the same exact period of the day, we might have 2 sections of that running. In that case, a remote teacher may have an in-person counterpart, even if that person's not listed on your student's schedule. They may be providing in-person instruction because those 2 course sections in some ways are going to be in some cases kind of combined so that the 2 teachers who are teaching them, one could be teaching in person and one could be, even if both teachers are on site, one could be taking care of the remote learners. So that's one potential that could happen. Another possibility may be that that's one of those singleton courses that we talked about, where only that one course only meets in that one period and there's one teacher who's teaching it. And we're going to be, right now what we're doing is matching up support people and classroom spaces for those courses. So for example, if you're taking a science class and there's only one teacher teaching it and that teacher is remote, that we'll be putting in some adults in a room with those students who would be able to be there ideally to support them as well as just to monitor them, and not thinking about it just being a monitor, but we're looking really carefully at our staffing list to see what's the best support person to put into place so that those students who are on campus have a space to do their learning with their remote teacher, but also have some on campus support. So that is the work that we're doing this week.
Along those same lines, will we be announcing which teachers or classes are remote for in-person students?
Yeah, I'll take that question. Right now, because everyone just recently made their declarations this week, and as I mentioned in the beginning, we have 75% of the teachers who have declared to be in person. And right now we have about 70% of the students. We are still kind of putting that all together to see how that actually lines up. That information will become public, but we want to know exactly how this is going to work and how we're going to piece this together. And when you're in person, if your teacher's remote, who's going to be in that room providing, academic, support and instruction to those classes. And so that information will be made public, just not yet.
Great. Regarding like the HVAC system and the current cleaning and updates that are going on, will classroom windows be open? Can students bring desk fans? And how's the ventilation looking?
Yeah, I saw that question. And so I threw out a quick text to Roger Preston, the facilities director. And the window, here's the part I could answer by myself. The windows will be open. There's absolutely, as long as it's, able to, we will. And we're gonna, the HVAC systems are going to be, they're being worked on and improved as we speak. They've been throughout the building in the last, 7 or 10 days working on improving the HVAC system in the building. As far as desk fans, we are not allowing, small desk fans or even other types of fans in the building.
Great. And then there's one more. If your child has a singleton class that ends up being remote, but they have chosen in person, can they opt to take that class only remotely?
I think in a situation where the teacher is remote and instruction is happening completely remotely, yes, that's one of the pieces with our flexible scheduling. If a student has a gap in their schedule and chooses to go home for that class, that's something that we'd be able to accommodate once we really have a better sense of how those classes are going to run. That's certainly something that is a possibility.
Great. I think that
I know a couple people raised their hands, and I'm not sure if I was communicated this earlier. If you have a question, if you could type it in. We're not using that function of unmuting attendees this evening. I know that might be a little bit of an inconvenience, but if you could type your question in, we'll be more than happy to answer it. If you have a question that you want to talk, you can email or call the school, and we'll be more than happy to reach out to you with that. The Power School app, there was a Power School app question. I saw that, Kelly. More information about the Power School app, and there'll be different apps and softwares that people can use, and such as, we're going to talk a little bit about what eCollect looks like, and Power School in coordinates with eCollect about keeping track of kids on campus. More information will come out about how to function with Empowered as well. So you got Empowered and Power School, and then Google Classroom as students and families that we're going to have to provide some information on how to learn and interact and navigate with. So that information will be coming, and so that's a great question on the Power School app. I encourage it. It's a powerful tool, and so we'll get that information to you.
Mike, when do people select in-person or remote for segment 2?
Good question. Good question. Segment 2 officially starts September 14th, and as of now, the district has declared we're looking for teachers and staff and students to declare on September 4th what their intention would be for segment 2. So September 4th.
Great. Kelly, regarding parking passes, if you have a remote student, but they're going to come in occasionally, best to get one?
Yes, absolutely. Because, as Mike said, this is a fluid situation. Things are changing. If you have a driver that will be on campus at any point, absolutely, they should get a parking permit. And I saw a question about carpooling. That's really a family decision. That's, we certainly can't mandate who's in a car outside of school. So that really is a family decision. So I encourage you to make those choices at home and talk to your kids about what your expectations are.
Great. Mike, the question about spacing between students.
Yeah, so firstly, let me say that when students are in the building and staff is in the building, we're going to be requiring masks. There will be 10 minutes in between classes, and we're providing mask breaks. And we have a system in place that we're going to finish developing, where students will be able to remove their masks, mostly outside or in some big spaces where they're socially distanced inside the building as the school year goes on, and weather does not permit us to just jump outside all the time. But as far as classrooms go, hey, people know if you 11th and 12th graders and families of 11th, 12th graders, this is a small building with small classrooms. We are doing our very best right now to kind of purge the building and create more space so we can go ahead and socially distance accordingly. We're hoping to be 3 to 6 feet apart in all spaces, and the logistics and the procedures on how we're going to move around the building and how classrooms are going to be set up are going to reflect that. But having the mask is kind of like a safety net for us. So, if we're not quite 6 feet apart in every space, if we're 3, we're going to be able to live with that. And as long as we have masks on. So that's the reality of the situation. And we're in a tough spot because we know that the kids in families, they might not be doing those things when they're outside the building, and then they come in and it's not common practice. So it's going to be something that we're going to have to be really diligent about in the first couple of weeks to kind of create that culture and routine within our staff and our students.
One just came in as well, Mike, about classrooms. Are cleaning supplies available in each classroom for students to clean their work area before moving to the next class, or do they have to bring their own?
They will not have to bring their own cleaning supplies. And we are going to be cleaning on the way in. Students will clean their spots that they are going to work in. We think students are more likely to help out with that piece of it than cleaning on the way out. And we're talking surface clean. We're not talking deep clean like baseboards and windows. We're talking like the desk you work at. Any others? Any other questions right now? So I'll say again, any question that you have over the next couple of weeks, please ask, please reach out. Students, advocate for yourselves and work with the adults who want to work with you to make this the best experience that we can. I've said from the get-go that we are most concerned with making sure that the seniors have the best year that they can and they are prepared to move on to the next phase of their life in the manner that they want, and that their plans and their future is not kind of affected or greatly affected by this. And we think we have a plan that allows us wide lanes and a lot of liberties and flexibilities to create these experiences. And you have really flexible and progressive adults working with the students here at Souhegan, which is one of the appeals why I wanted to come join the faculty and staff. And so I'm pretty certain that we can accommodate any request or any situation. We just need to understand that this is a partnership, and we need kids to own their own learning and be, active partners in that. And we're here to help. The last thing that I was telling the other group that, it's really important, and this is a message that I'm conveying to the adults at Souhegan, that although we're dealing with 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, we're still the adults, and the adults will go ahead and feed off of, the children and students will feed off the temperament, the mannerisms, the optimism of the adults. And so it's not the most ideal situation that we have in front of us, but there is a way to look at it. And so as family members on this call, I can encourage you that I know, and based on my experience as an educator, that kids will follow the lead of adults, and how we handle ourselves is going to dictate how students will handle themselves. And we're going to be as optimistic and open and flexible and as we navigate this year. And in order for this to work, we need the students and families to be open and optimistic and flexible and have some real understanding in this. And, I love to say that we're like overly prepared and everyone knows how to do this the right way. But the reality of the situation is we were thinking on our feet and we are trying to do this in the best interest of kids. So being open and flexible and understanding is the only way we know how to go about this. And so please keep those things in mind as we work with your students this year. Perfect.
Great.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a good evening. Take care.